Hello and welcome to Ringorama, a Ringo Starr podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. He's been a member of Ringo's All-Star Band for the last 6 years. It's Warren Ham. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing, Lucas? It's great to meet you.
Good. What were your first influences in getting into the saxophone and other instruments such as
Oh,
that?
that's a good question. Yeah, I grew up in the '60s, listening to, of course, the Beatles and uh, the Cream and Jimi Hendrix and stuff. And I didn't play guitar, so I started playing harmonica about 15 years old. That's the first wind instrument I picked up. And then when Jethro Tull came along, I heard about I got interested in the flute. So actually took up flute before I took up saxophone at 17, and I took up the flute. And then a couple of years later, I guess when I was 19 or 20, I decided to start playing saxophone as well, because it's in the same woodwind family as the flute, similar fingering, etc. So that's how I got influenced by all those early guys, like King Crimson, the guy in that group, Ian Underwood with Frank Zappa, of course Jethro Tull, Ian Anderson on flute, and some of the very early saxophone players at Woodstock, David Sanborn, who was with Paul Butterfield band, and it just kind of was a natural progression.
Of course, the first band you were in was the Ham Brothers Band with your brother Bill.
Yeah,
How did
yeah.
that turn out? Because I know that
Actually,
record never got made.
yeah, that we did one record, and then we had a lot of legal problems with that, so it didn't go very far. Actually, before that, I was in Blood Rock, which was on Capitol Records, and I took over for their lead singer who quit, and I did a couple of 3 records with them, 2 of which were released, and then subsequently they had a trilogy that was released just about 40 years later. I'm dating myself a little bit, but I did 2 albums on Capitol with them before the band was dropped from Capitol, and then I went back to Texas and went to school and started the Ham Brothers Band with my brother.
Yeah. And then you also, the Ham Brothers Band, they went and toured with Bread for a while in the late 70s.
Yeah, my brother and I it was just my brother and I did the Bread tour, and that was just one season. And interestingly enough, my brother, who had worked with Sonny and Cher on their TV show, knew Cher, and she came to one of our concerts when we were playing with Bread out at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. She was there, and so she came backstage and said, "I'm putting together a Vegas show, and I would love to have you guys in it." And since David Gates only used us for that one tour, we said, sure, why not? We'll look into it, And my brother and I joined up with Cher at that point, the next year after the David Gates tour. And so I subsequently did 3 years with Cher and her. This was after Sonny and Cher broke up, but it was 3 years in Vegas, a
Yeah.
Vegas.
And you ended up playing on an album Black Rose.
Yeah. Singing and playing harmonica. Yeah.
Well, after that, you toured of Kansas for a little bit.
I
What were your
did.
favorite parts of that experience?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What were your favorite parts of that experience touring of Kansas in the early 80s?
Oh, well, one of my best memories is, of course, my wife and I spent time in Atlanta during the rehearsals, and we got to know the city of Atlanta quite a bit. And now that was a fun trip during the rehearsals. And then I would say the best part of that tour was the live video the live video recording that we did in Omaha, Nebraska that year. And that was they put that out, and that's still out on. You can find that on YouTube or any of the the outlets that's out there now. And so that was in 1982 ish, 1982, something like that, summer of 1982, I believe. And that's a great memory.
Yeah. What was it like touring with Donna Summer? Because I know you toured with her in the 80s a little, and then you toured with
Yeah.
her a little
Yeah,
closer now.
that was like 83, 84. I only did the one tour with Kansas, and then of course they took a break to do another record, and so I moved on, and I auditioned for Donna, and I like 83, 84, I think, something like that. And she did. It was right around the time she was having a big hit with She Works Hard for the Money. It was a big record for her, and I think it was produced by Michael Amarty, and so I joined up with her outfit, and I was on and off with her for many, many years, all the way up until pretty much close until she passed away in 2012. And so I played with her off and on for many, many years. I did other things. I also did intermittently, I did Amy Grant, and I did Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons.
Oh, sorry, I accidentally just got a phone call.
Oh, I did?
Oh, it was me. It was fine.
Oh, that's you.
Continue
Okay.
on.
Yeah, no, I worked with her intermittently through that period, and I kept coming back to her, but I also worked with Amy Grant in the late 80s. Toto too. I mean, I'm leaving those. How can I leave those guys out? Yeah. When Donna wasn't touring, I would get on other tours and recordings and such, whatever I could, and I wound up with Toto, and that was a blast. Did that for a couple of 3 years in the mid 80s. And then I went back to Donna for a while, and then I got on the Amy Grant tour in the late 80s. And then it was back with Donna in the early 90s. So it just kind of back and forth, whatever was available.
So how'd you get the call to start working with Ringo? Was it through Toto?
Yeah. It was basically that's a good question, because I hadn't worked with Toto in a long time, since the 80s. And I had moved on and done, like I said, Amy Grant and then Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons in the 90s. And then at the very end of the 90s, I was with Olivia Newton-John for nearly 15 years. So I didn't really connect with those Toto guys for a long, long time. And I got back in touch with Steve Lukather a few years, in 2012, I think, and just said, hey, we should reconnect and go out, have lunch or something, and that never really did happen. But then in 2014, he called me, very early 2014, he called me out of the blue and said, hey, listen, I think I have a gig for you, and you'd be perfect for this gig. And he explained to me what was happening, that the guy that Ringo was using at the time was going to permanently go with Billy Joel.
Yeah. Because
Billy Joel was playing every week at Madison Square Garden in New York. And so the guy didn't have to leave town. And but Luke said, I did everything he did, and it was a perfect gig for me. So he said, would you be interested in playing with Ringo Starr? So it's like, oh yeah, sure, for sure I would,
Yeah.
So it was really exciting to get that call,
So one of the first things you did was you actually collaborated on the track Island in the Sun.
Yes, we did. That was kind of a band collaboration that we did.
It was like a big thing getting the band together for a song.
Yeah, it was a great, working with Ringo is just the most fun you could imagine. It's the best tour of all the tours I've ever done, in terms of just like the way he is, the way he treats the musicians, and just every aspect of it is just so much better and cooler. And plus, he's a Beatle, so I mean, how can you not dig that? I really enjoy working with Ringo.
Yeah, you've toured with him since 2015, which has been, well, I mean, COVID.
Well, 2014, to be precise, it's 2014 that I joined up with him, and we're still there. I mean, we've been interrupted by COVID, as has everybody else, of course, but we're planning on some more stuff, I think, for next year.
Yeah, did you guys ever get to rehearsals for that tour that never happened?
No, I don't think we did. I think we got up to about 3 or 4 weeks away from those rehearsals, and Ringo pulled the plug on it, because he's older now and he has to be more careful. We all do, because we're older guys, and we got to be careful because of the COVID, and
yeah.
So, but I'm triple vaxxed now, and I've just recently went out and did a one-off date with Toto just last week. And we're kind of testing the waters to see what's safe and what's not safe to do, and so on and so forth, you know, and of course, taking all the precautions and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm optimistic that we'll be able to get back to work. And Toto wants to work in February and March. And there's talk of a tour with Journey coming up in April. And then after that, hopefully Ringo will want to get back out.
He always does his summer tours every year.
He does. Yeah, that's correct. He does. He likes the summer, June, July, and then he likes to get done by the time his birthday, which is on July 7th. So, and then there may be possibly something in the fall or early fall. I don't know. It just depends. Depends again on what happens with COVID and everything. I'm optimistic though that we might be able to get back to it.
So what's it like when you're doing the shows and then you'll have a guest sometimes? Must be the funnest times. What do you remember? What are your favorites of some of those guests coming on? What are your favorite times?
One second, please.
A resume. So yeah, what are your favorite times that you've had a guest appearance with the All-Stars?
Oh, wow. You know, I'm a big fan of Edgar Winter, always have been.
Yeah.
He was one of my
one of the sax greats back before you came along with the
he's been with Ringo for years, and he comes and makes a guest appearance once in a while. A lot of the alumni do. The All-Star alumni come, and they like to come on for the last song of the show, which is A Little Help from My Friends.
Yeah.
And so it's generally I can't think of the names right now, but just a lot of the old alumni guys come out.
We have like Gary Burr come out, and
Gary Burr.
Every once in a while, Peter Frampton, those type of people.
I haven't seen Peter Frampton yet, but I've seen Edgar a lot. Wow, just a lot of guys. Gary Wright comes out sometimes. I can't think of everybody right now, but
it's a long list of people.
It is. It's a long list of people, but it's great. You know, Keltner comes out and sits in on drums. You know, Ringo loves that. Joe Walsh, who is his brother-in-law, you know, loves to come out. It's just great to have all those guys on the stage. It's just exhilarating to be part of it.
Yeah, I feel like the most that happened in your tenure was the concert at the Greek Theater for the 30th anniversary, which I think was the last show of that tour.
Yeah, we always end at the Greek. That's kind of like
Ringo's home base.
It's kind of we're pretty much all LA based guys for the most part. Some guys have to come from Hawaii or Texas or some other part of the country, you know. But the majority of us are like Greg Bissonette, myself, Luke, Steve Lukather. Live here in LA, you know, and Greg Raleigh's from Texas. He lives in Austin. Hamish Stewart comes all the way from London, but he's got friends that he stays with when he comes here. So we generally rehearse here or at the first venue that we're going to play at when we start a tour.
Hamish is a Paul alumni too. He's worked with Paul a lot in the last year.
Yeah, he did. It's right. He worked with Paul. That's correct. So he's had the privilege of working with both Beatles, you know.
So what are your favorite songs when the concert's going on? What are your favorite songs to do? I bet like when you're doing the concert.
Well, I like the whole thing. I'm pretty involved with every song that comes down. You know, I like Colin Hayes stuff quite a bit. You know, I get to play flute. I love the Toto stuff because I get to play saxophone and sing some of the parts, and it's just a blast to do all the songs. Really, you know, I enjoyed it when Todd was in the band, and
he's always got something going on.
Yeah, he's a crazy guy. Graham Gouldman was fun because he's got such great songs. I'm pretty active in the show, so I'm involved in every aspect of it.
You're not playing saxophone, you're playing flute or playing percussion.
And it keeps me busy. I like to be busy. I'm just a working musician. You know, I just consider myself a working musician. I'm not a star or anything, but but Ringo treats us as if we are, you know, so that's another great thing about him. He's just so generous.
Yeah. So you haven't collaborated much. Some of the All-Star people haven't collaborated too much in the studio work. Have you done anything else besides the one track on postcards? Oh, I feel like the Zoom's cutting out.